All right. So yeah, what do you guys know about sessions now? Anybody? Any idea? Okay, fine. Let's take this small example. So you log into Facebook. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Good. Good. Nice answers. You guys already know about it. Fine. Then that summarizes everything. So there's do you know the process behind it? So what's really happening there? Okay, let's discuss that process. So you log into Facebook, then you have logged into Facebook, you land onto your wall actually. That's called your wall or your news feed. Now you move to your friend's wall. Then you move here and there, and finally sometime later you log out. Now when you log out, okay, you cannot see your news feed. Alright, so when you're logged out. Again, you have to sign in to see your news feed or your friend's wall, or if it's public, yeah, you can see even if if you did not log in. But if it's private, then you have to log in to see his wall or her wall. Okay, so how does this happen actually? Since we all know now, web pages or single pages. A project is a combination of it a group of files which are stored on the server. So when you move from one location to the other location, they're nothing but files, they're nothing but pages. They are simple .php extensions, but how do you maintain it? So everywhere you cannot just keep on checking that, like, okay, is this sagar, is this sagar, is this sagar? Okay, so public int array index print 100 int cache. Oh my goodness, this complete Java array index plus one. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, pretty fair. So all you gotta do is like call the main function or print print 100 int I. So int I goes there. Well, system dot print in print. So where does it tell it to exit after 100? You say print 100, right? Where do you tell? New int 101. Does that int 101 solve it? Like when you reach 101 it terminates? Yeah, I got it. Good. So yeah, guys, once you understand, follow the principle, or come up with a with a solution which you feel like you can really understand, because I know you guys are not familiar with Java, so that's the reason I said the whole concept, like the caching. Okay, great, no problem. So yeah, so how does this server know that it's you who are walking through your Facebook profile? Like every time you click on, you message, you post, you like, it's all you, right? Once you log out, you cannot like, you cannot comment, you cannot do anything. So how does it track that information? Okay, so to do that, there's a concept called sessions. So session, I mean, to generalize, to give it a like, in a layman meaning, like, is a time you spend on that website as a single user. Like you log in, a session starts, you travel, and when you log out, session ends. Right? It means it has a general English meaning. Like session is nothing but a time frame, in which you does something. Like this is a session, this class is a session. We guys are doing it for 1.5 hours, so that's a session. That's the amount of time we are spending here. So To generalize, session is a time frame wherein the user comes there, logs in. So we log the session starts, then as soon as he logs out, the session is done. So why it is useful? Because session using sessions, so I don't say that it is used to store information. Yeah, that's fair amount of time, but not just user information, it can store any kind of information. So using session, I can keep a track I can keep a track on the logged in user. So as of now, let's just take only one scenario, only one case, when I only track the information of a logged in user. So once you log in, I'll just lock your session, okay, and I'll store your information. So what kind of information does a session in general store? Like what a web developer has to store in a session. So you, for instance, you have to store his ID, because since ID is an identifier which rules your database, records on your name. Then email, if you have an email, so that whenever I have to send emails to you, I have to send notifications to you, I'll say email. Then username, if, or your first name, last name, whatever. So as soon as you log into Tutoslive, you see that there's a section where on the top of the navigation bar you can see your name. Okay, so I'm saving your name in a session. So you can see your name. When you click on it, there's a drop down like account, settings, and logout, right? So that's the reason. So in general, I only do this, like I will only store this information. Okay, sometimes, okay, database calls are expensive. So when I say expensive, that means performance. Okay, database calls are expensive. So if you have user control, let's say there's an admin, there's a user, and there's a guy who only just looks at it. He doesn't do any action over there. So there are user roles. So in that case, I'll store the role also. So I can do this using database. Every time if I store only ID, that's enough, right? With ID I can get any information. Okay, select email from users where ID equal to so and so ID. Select email, or select role from users where ID equal to so and so. So I can do that, but still database calls are very expensive. So in order to fetch the email every time, in order to fetch your name every time, I don't have to go to database. Right, because database is used for getting some good amount of information over there, some important information over there, which cannot be done like this. Like you can store that email in a session, which we'll be seeing in a while how to do that. Okay, so fair enough, this is good. So even before talking about session, I had to talk about cookies, but I skipped that part because since the project do not use cookies concept. But I'll tell you about the cookies first, then I'll tell how sessions are stored, which is really important. People will ask you like, okay, what exactly is session? And there are some parameters in session which are default. Like they ask, how long does a session stay? Anybody know this answer? How long does a session stay or alive? Yeah, anybody has an answer? It can be set by user, but there's a default value. Okay, it's 20 minutes. So it's like if you do not set a value for it, okay, the average or the minimum lifespan of a session is 20 minutes. Like you be there, you logged into a website, and you stay idle. Like after 20 minutes you get logged out. Okay, unless and until you navigate, like 20 minutes is the default time where the session gets expired. And there's another thing, how much information can a session store. Again, this can be set, like the session, how much a session variable can contain. I guess it's I don't exactly remember, I have to cross check. Maybe 1 MB of information can it can store, or 1 KB. I don't exactly remember this. I'll get back with this information. Okay, so these two questions, people interviews ask, like, how long does a session survive? Okay, how can you set it? So in php.ini file, okay, just find session. Okay, okay, let's do this. I'll show you guys. So I'm gonna share my screen here. So let's see this. So here, I go to XAMPP PHP. You can see it here, XAMPP PHP. Then in this php.ini, okay, I'll just open it with Notepad++. So this is it. So I'll search for session. Okay. Okay. So here, this is interesting information. So people will ask you, where does the session information get stored on the server? Okay, it gets stored in $tmp. Sorry, the tmp folder of XAMPP. Let's go back here and see tmp folder. XAMPP tmp. You see here. Okay, this is all the session information I have done until today. Okay, let's see the latest one. So you can see the latest. You see here session. So I've just done at around 6 o'clock using my local host. This is localhost is my server. So this is where the session information is stored. Okay, you can open this. You can hack everything using this. If you get access to this particular folder, you can hack everything. Okay, I'll show you how to do it. Let's take this old file and say edit. Okay, you won't may not be able to read this, but this stores everything right from the emails to passwords. So let me try to open a smaller file so that you guys can have a good look of it. Or maybe PHP has changed its I don't know if, well, yeah, maybe, yeah, it's here. Okay, name. Fine. Let's keep that aside. Let's stop that hacking part over there. But yeah, your whenever you go for interview, they'll ask you, where does the session get stored on the server? It gets stored on inside the temp folder, tmp. Okay. So session uses cookies. That's the reason I told you guys that I had to talk about cookies first. Then this is a session name, and I'll show you guys where this gets stored. PHP session ID is the session name. So it says name of the session used as a cookie name. Alright. So and then you see here lifetime. Lifetime in seconds of cookie or until the browser is restarted. So whenever you close the browser and restart, when I say 0, that means and then next, and you see here, this is it, the maximum lifetime. Okay, it's 1440 seconds. So 1440 seconds, how much by 60? 1440 by 60 time of the session in seconds. Okay, and then the next thing we need to check for is okay, so let me talk about that, how a session gets stored actually. So this is a very tricky one. So we know session is stored in where? Session is stored where? Stored in tmp folder. Okay, right? So but that tmp folder, what it does is it stores all your information which is stored in a session, and it will generate, it stores information in serialized format. Like serialized format is something like this. For instance, if I'm storing email, okay, it will be stored like this, sagar@tutoslive.com. come, then this, if I store name, okay, name Sagar, like this is called serialized data, like everything is like in a sequence. Okay, so it stores information in a serialized format, and what it does is it generates a ID. Okay, it generates an ID. So this ID is named after this. You see there, we have seen the session name, PHP Ses ID. So an ID will be generated. Let's say an ID, say 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, whatever. Okay. So this ID is associated with the file. It's called a file. It stores as a file. You guys can see it here, right? We have seen that. Some SESS underscore blah 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 file. Okay, so that file is associated with this particular ID, and this ID is then sent to the browser, and this is saved as a cookie in the browser. Alright, so what happens? Your information is stored as a file in TMP folder, and a session ID is generated. That session ID is sent to the browser as a cookie, and it gets stored there, which we'll be seeing. I'll be showing you practically. Then what happens? Every time you are accessing the website, it has a session ID, and it checks in the temp folder every time. Does this session ID there? Yes, it's there. Then get the information. Okay, every time, now and then it checks there. Now what happens after 40 seconds? I don't know, still I cannot calculate how much was that. 23 minutes. So 1 minute is 60 seconds. So 6 3s are 18, 6 4s are 24, 12. Yeah, 24 minutes. So after 24 minutes, this is erased from the browser. So when it is erased from the browser, what happens? Does my browser and the TMP folder has any relationship when it is erased? How does it know this particular user is logged in or not? Does it have any relation now when it is erased from the browser? Yes? When? No, absolutely no. Right? So that is what happening over there. When you say a session is expired, you see in this IRCTC website, every time you press a back button, you know what it does? It just destroys that cookie, so that your information is no more associated. Okay, so as soon as the 24-minute time limit is done, the session PHP SSID is removed from the browser, and so there will be no relation. When there is no relation, it cannot go through the website. It simply tells you that, hey, please log in to continue, because we did not find your information, because the session ID is expired. The browser is removed that particular thing. But you can still see there's a file, right? There's a file on the browser. Sorry, there's a file on the server. I said there's a file on the server. The file will be intact. The file will be there itself. As soon as the session ID is removed, it won't do anything. It keeps the file. But some of the time, if I keep on maintaining these files, what happens? My storage will be increased, right? Yes. If I keep on, because I logged in Facebook this morning, I log out. Now I log in again. I log out. I log in again. So every time you do this, a single file is generated. They're not duplicates, because they are unique files. Let's say they are completely unique files. So every time I keep these files, it gets huge, right? So what happens is, okay, what happens is, it's right here. It's a document. The document expires after 180 minutes. So 180 minutes is 3 hours. Alright. So after 3 hours, okay, after 3 hours, that document will be erased. That document will be completely gone. So why the place to store that particular document in the first place? Yeah. Why in the first place? Why should you store? Like as soon as the session ID expires, it should expire, right? Yeah, it should. As soon as the session ID is expired, right? In 20 minutes it's gonna go. So why should you keep? So the thing is only one thing. So the communication is from the browser to the temp file. Like, okay, I have this session ID, it passes the session ID to temp folder. Okay, there is an identity, get the information, but the temp folder will not do the reverse thing. Like it won't check for it. Okay, does the ID present, does the ID present, it won't check for it. So so that's the reason they keep a time on it. Okay, it won't keep on checking how many times it's communicating. It only checks for, okay, there is a request coming from this session ID. Yeah, it's coming. Do we have information? Yes, we do have information. Give it back. Okay, so that's the reason it keeps it for the next 3 hours, so that this guy will not lose any information, because it knows, if somebody is logged in, is idle for 3 hours, let's say, so he's still browsing the website, let's say. So that's the reason it keeps up that information. Alright, so that's one more thing. So people will ask you, like, okay, session will expire in 24 minutes, but how long does the file stay? So how long does the file stay, the temp file, temp folder file? Yeah, how long does it stay? No answer. Great. So what else we have here?